I mean, not a talented one.
I don't think so.
I think that was the. Alright, I guess we can call the meeting to order. And review, we got copies. Is everyone good with lights, or do you?
I'm fine. Somebody else can make a motion this time to accept the meeting.
I make a motion to begin the meeting. Oh, to accept the minutes.
Yeah, minutes.
Yeah, it's always, it's true.
I'm a second.
One minor change under management plan draft. Second line, it says, Ken said all the needs are now available online. It should read, Ken said all the deeds.
Deeds.
There are a lot of needs online as well. So.
That's how we just lost it.
What's that?
Okay. Any other comments on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? Thank you. Moving on. Prospect Farm.
I met with the selectmen, well, Ben, you were there at the meeting as well. The selectmen okayed that Gary could work with us to help convert the stump dump into a parking lot area. I went up there the other day, it's still pretty soggy, so there's no sense in trying to get up there and do anything. And after today's rain, I'd probably have to wait a few more days, but the selectmen were fine, and Gary thought it would not be a big deal. So I'll just go up with him, mark it out. I don't think there's a lot that needs to be done up there, because I think it's quite easy to convert that. And once we get proceeding with that, I'll touch bases with Jim Ennis and ask the Forest Service if they can move the gate out. I guess we have two choices. We could have them move the gate out to the exact boundary, or we could have them just hopscotch it out to just where the second parking lot will be. Because the boundary is actually
Correct.
probably 60, 70, 80 yards up, I would guess, or something. It's a little distance up.
I would say that
Once
the
it's
downside, once you move it down the extra 60, 70 yards, people are gonna,
Park.
Yeah, I would say put it right at
I
the,
think, right at the edge.
or at the edge of the parking, the new
at the
parking.
barn.
Yeah, because otherwise people will, they'll drive all the way down there.
And then you can block the gate more easily.
Yeah.
All right. And then in addition, this goes for Jackson Falls. That's our 4x8 sheet. And this is the best that I could just grab off the color. I've sent it over to Jackson Signmaker. He will try to make these in the near future. One of these signs will say additional parking 100 yards with the arrow going up that we can put there, so that when people park at the first lot if it's full, they know they can proceed up to the second. And while I'm on this, there'll be 20 no parking signs. They will be 12 by 16 each.
Is this a prospect? Was it you're talking
The no parking will be for the Jackson Falls.
So when you're talking about additional parking, what are you talking about?
You mean number of spaces?
Yeah,
No.
because,
Well, the stump dump will be converted in
okay, so you're talking about a stump dump, I want to make sure if you're talking about Prospect or Falls.
Prospect.
Okay.
But then, switching over to the Falls quick and jumping ahead here a little bit. When the sign maker, he will make one of these signs off that board that'll say additional parking, 100 yards, that will go to Prospect. And then he will make 20, this is for Jackson Falls now, will say no parking. And these will be 12 by 16. And then I'll have him make one that says handicap bathroom parking 20 minutes, which will be, we'll put it up where the Jackson residents are, so that anybody that's handicapped that wants to access the porta potty will know that they can park up there legitimately for 20 minutes. So he may even be making those now. He was checking a couple things. They'll be slightly smaller because obviously when you cut the board, you're gonna lose 1/4 inch on the corners.
Right.
But that's roughly the color. I mean, you've seen the ski touring
Yeah.
brown and white ones out there. It's basically that same thing. So that's in progress. And then once they're done, we'll have to pay them for the materials and that sort of stuff, which should be under $1,000. And then we'll have to buy, I think, I don't know, it's 2x2, probably post at least, to put in the ground. And I also asked if Gary could help us with those, just getting those posted, and Selectmen were okay with that as well.
Gary Spears.
Gary, yeah,
Oh, Gary Spears or Gary
Gary
from
Allen.
the town?
Gary Allen.
Okay, Gary Allen. Yeah.
He's probably got a check of work in front of him right now.
Oh, yeah. It's not pleasant.
Okay.
I'm sure you probably already covered this with the road agent or the town, but do we need to just make sure that they're mindful for when they go up there and they clear the parking for the second site, just to be really cautious about the knotweed up there so they don't like smash stuff up and push stuff back and end up making, like spreading it farther back into the woods or to the other side, or somehow bring it back down into town on a vehicle
Yeah.
and then have it spread that way or anything?
I'll take it, last year when, in the fall, I can't remember, there was a little bit that was
There's a-
popping up and I broke it off, and probably some of you guys are probably
Yeah.
doing the same stuff when you
Yeah,
did, you just
yeah.
kept. If he pushes it back, I don't think it's gonna change much because it's
Okay.
already there. And quite frankly, I don't think there's a lot of work outside of just, because most of the stumps and stuff are in the back,
Okay.
it'll just be kind of brushing it out. I was just gonna put some stakes out there so that he kind of knew the area. And that would give us basically double what these, I mean, it's the same parking lot size as that exists there. It's roughly that same dimension.
Okay.
So we can get, it depends how people park and how big their trucks are. But I would guess another 5 or 6 cars. And normally when I've been up there, when the lot is full, you can see 3, 4, 5 extra cars. Of course, over time, use could even increase from that point on, but this will help us a little bit more in the summer.
I guess my one thought would be about where the gate goes is the concern that if you don't know that lot is full and you drive down to it,
Try to turn.
Can you turn around?
Turn around.
yeah, is there a way we can,
Can you give enough?
Well,
space
you want to
for
make
it?
sure, well,
Yeah.
currently the way it is you have the lot and then the gate's a little distance out.
right,
So you don't want to flush with that.
right,
There is actually an area when you go up a little bit further that's still on town land that you could park in as well, that's kind of been plowed in.
It's just a thought, because
Yeah,
Well, that second lot it's deeper than the first one, right? Am I remember thinking?
Well,
Like my
it could
memory is
be.
that it's deeper.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
go farther in, so that could give you enough room. I think that if you went down there and cars had pulled forward all the way and were parked,
yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, I guess as long as the
parallel.
gate should probably give somebody enough room to make that.
so I'll talk with the Forest Service, they may want to move it right out to that line, if that's the case, so be it.
Right.
Right,
But doesn't the lot just have to be deep enough, like you said?
Well, the lot is deep enough now,
yeah.
it's deeper than the
But
existing.
people park weird,
Yeah.
people say, I park behind my friend because I know he's leaving.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It's like, we're,
The problem you have is, and that's true, the existing one is, the first person, if they pull in, may park somewhere in the middle, and that controls everything that goes to the
Yeah.
side.
yeah, well, it's an improvement, that's the goal.
Yeah.
In fact, I would suggest that we move it all the way up, because there is that third area up there, if we ever decide that you want to use that. That may take a little fill to come in, but, and when I go up with Gary, he'll decide whether he needs to put any gravel or as a surface or not, but quite frankly, I think it's pretty solid the way it is. If it was the Forest Service, we'd have to do a lot additional.
Yeah, I guess my only concern about that is if it gets moved all the way out to the Forest Service line, then we've essentially just de facto created that much extra parking.
Big, yeah, one that like is.
Yeah. The one positive thing about moving it out, which is the same true when you go out to Quail, et cetera, is people can go get a free pass for using the Jackson Ski Touring groomed area that's on town-only land,
Mhm.
okay? By putting it out to the boundary, that designates when you hit where the gate is. Like on the Quail, you know when you hit the gate. If somebody from town is skiing past that gate back onto National Forest land, then they become illegal again. Because the Ski Touring Foundation works with a special use permit. So if anybody has picked up the free pass, free town pass to ski up there, they are restricted to skiing only partway out Boggy, partway out Quail, and they can ski up to the Orchard and all the way up to Hall's Ledge, but most of those people don't want to ski that. But that's, the one thing in moving the gate out is it lets people know exactly where the boundary is. There is, as you know, there is a sign there right now, but it's
Small, yeah.
Yeah. Not that people go out and chase people down on that, but that's,
Does Jackson Ski Touring track how many of those resident permits they issue?
I don't think so, because I think they provide it to the town and to the library, so people can just come in and pick it up and use it.
Okay.
I've
only ever
Yeah.
heard about it in the context of this room. And,
Yeah.
It's posted out there periodically, it's just,
okay. It would just be interesting if that's something that could benefit getting advertised more.
yeah. To be honest, most people want to ski up Boggy Brook,
Right.
and
Well, yeah, you're limited if that's what you,
it is limited, yeah.
okay.
I think my preference would be to agree with Ben and not have it go all the way out, just because then you're also creating just more road, and it's kind of nice that it's, you know, I mean, I realize it's a road no matter what, but it's kind of nice that the road stops and then you're on a roadless, you know, a trail-ish. But I don't know if I feel strongly enough to firmly debate, you know, I don't, you know,
I'll let the Forest Service also determine, because
Yeah.
normally they want to put it on their land, you know, where they're, and if that's what they feel best with.
yeah.
I don't think.
No, they decide that's what.
The only reason the Forest Service put it where it is right now is because it was to prevent people from using the stump dump unless they had a key from in town. Otherwise, it would be out at the boundary, the same as the others.
Okay.
I guess you just put up a sign then, if they do that, it says no parking after this sign. Draw
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Well, one thing that's gonna have to happen is, right after where the gate is now, there's a blown out culvert. There's a pretty good ditch in there.
Yeah.
You don't see it skiing because it all gets plowed in, but I
Yeah.
was up there a couple days ago, and yeah,
Might be getting bigger too.
I have to say, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings, but initially I would say my first choice would be at the gate was just pulled. Just beyond the new parking lot enough to get a car to turn around. But again, like Mike said, I don't
I'll see what the Forest Service
Yeah.
says, because
think I'll look at it again myself.
I'll bring that up if they were amenable, so yeah.
Because I think the other thing that would be disappointing is if having a parking lot and then the space beyond the parking lot just becomes additional cars lined up in some sort of.
Well, that's what they're doing right now. They're lining up in front of that.
Yeah,
And then they're
yeah.
also starting to block, going up toward the orchard in that area, which is a problem, because if you ever had access up there in an emergency, you got people in there parking on Valentine's property
Yeah.
across from Camp Cow as well,
Yeah.
which is Valentine's property. It's not down there.
All right.
Okay. Do you have anything to say on parking area at Prospect Farm, Dick?
No, did it work out with the?
Yeah, I talked with the selectmen, I talked with Gary, yeah, for all stuff. We just gotta let stuff dry out.
I'm sure you cleared up any misconceptions with
Yeah, I
Frank or
did, yeah.
Gary about
I did, yeah.
what the parameters are.
Good. I don't think there's much they're gonna need to do outside of, it's pretty solid ground already, yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll just keep an eye on that, and as things start to dry out, like, I'm sure I'll be spending more time up there and look around and keep an eye on that knotweed patches.
I would say on the knotweed, the best we could do is, anytime anybody's out there and you start to see evidence, just keep clipping it back. Because it was just, I don't know, last time I looked, there was just a tiny bit that was still there after the last spraying. And if the town decides to come in and spray the roads, we ought to, if there is stuff up, then have them spray that at the same time.
Okay. All right. Jackson Falls. Did go up there to see if there was any washouts, and it looks like it actually survived quite well. All pathways are still pretty much intact. We didn't lose too much of the wood chips.
Yeah.
Just kind of in that upper section just below the stairs where it kind of is scouring out a little bit more. It kind of came up onto the pathway, but it didn't look like it lost anything. So that's good.
That's surprising.
Yeah, considering the volume of water that was moving through there. So.
Yeah.
How about that area between the bench and the bank, where it kind of dips down and goes up to the bench?
There is quite a bit of gravel that's been, or like large rocks that have been pushed in through there, and I don't know how long of an accumulation that is. But it was kind of, I'm sure it was cut off earlier in the day. It kind of
Right.
gone down. I mean, it definitely gets scoured through there, so.
Well, there had been a suggestion a number of years ago that we fill that in with some, material, and it was like, I don't think so, folks. The water is gonna go through there
Yeah.
occasionally. So it used to be, every 100 years, so now it's every 20 years, or every 10 years. But anyway, I just curious, it shouldn't have gotten into the trees on the bank side.
No, it didn't get pushed up that far.
Yeah.
And I didn't explore too far downhill. I just was uphill a little bit. So, picnic
Almost
tables.
came out of the banks onto the golf course until this field, but it didn't.
Yeah. So I guess jumping around, I like ferns. I want to talk about ferns.
Oh, farms, yeah. So I figured I needed to jump on the bare root stuff because of the time window that we have to get bare roots. So I basically got 7, I don't have any yet, interrupted ferns, because they'll, that's, I think, what would work really well there. And then it's just a matter of, I think I sent everybody just an idea as to, where I want, I don't know if I just sent you the pictures thing.
Yeah.
Right about here, and put some soil in, throw some plants in, put some fencing up. I was thinking maybe see if I could get some logs, because that would help a little bit, keeping the dogs out. So that was thinking. I'm really curious. I just, I think I can remember that there used to be ferns there, and you really could, somebody was saying that you could actually, have the ferns at your fingertips, like all the way down the path. And I think it might just be because the town kept cutting them down. Because if you keep cutting ferns down, they won't come back.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a number, we couldn't just have a motion to.
I did send an email out. I don't know if anybody got that.
I did, yeah.
So
I read it.
Yeah, so it was like $82.50 for the ferns and $50 for the soil. And the rest, I figured, just take some of the green fencing we have from, the sod. And like I said, maybe I could get some logs. I was gonna ask Gary until he had all the water. And maybe I'll wait on that. He's got enough stuff to do.
So that number was just a total of $132.50.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So is that, you've already gotten the firms, so the only other thing?
I ordered the firms, don't have them yet. And then I got the price on the materials from Paris.
Okay. This is the part that I'm bad at, is the reimburse, like,
So what happens is I'll have to print out something from my credit card for the firms, and then I'll submit it to the Julies, and then they'll contact you and say, is this okay?
okay.
And then I think we have an account with Paris, so then I go down and I put it on the charge account down there, and then they'll contact you again and say, is this okay?
Okay.
I think that's what they'll do.
I
That's
think-
been my experience, man.
Well, just as long as we have the motion authorizing the expenditure, I think that's the most
Yeah.
important part, so. Does that sound right? Okay.
Does to me.
Order of operations is, can be difficult sometimes.
Well, it's a highly scrutinized meeting. I can tell people are really putting the screws to you.
Well,
Yeah, it's,
I'll have you know, I did get a comment from somebody by email, so I'll share that at the end. Somebody who actually did watch the video.
oh no. Okay, well, I guess as soon as that, I kind of like these just low-key work days. If we can just go in and start spreading, move the rest of that pile.
The rest of the wood chips pile.
Yeah, at the top. If we're going in the direction of making sure that the porta potty is handicapped accessible, we'll probably end up needing to pull up the plastic lath and move out all of the wood chips.
Yeah,
Because right now it's not particularly accessible.
I'll go look at it again, but yeah, I think you're right.
And then,
It's nice and wet and compacted right now, it probably is, but when it dries out, it is kind of, yeah.
right, so I guess just in terms of putting a gravel pathway 4 feet wide from the resident parking side to the front of the porta potties,
Yeah.
I guess would be.
I think that's what we talked about in the past, yeah.
Do you want me to, we have twice now done, it's not ADA compliant, but it's accessible, a gravel material, just like a really fine packed down gravel material that we've used for a trail at Tin Mountain, and we used for one at the high school for a game trail. Do you want me to find out what that is? And that could be a potential option.
Yeah, that's it has a bunch of different trade names. And we're getting a ton of that, because that's going to be the surface material for the river.
Oh, gotcha.
So we may have a bunch of that on hand that could get repurposed. It's not strictly a town expenditure, so it may end up just being a donation to the town. Because we'll also have the base layer for the gravel, which will be the bed material, and then that finer compacted stuff gets on top of that. So we may have ready access to that material in the next month.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna, if we don't have to spend money on that at the moment,
Yeah.
Do you remember how much is, because the Jackson Falls has a fund of which it can't be less than 12,000 that still stays in the bank account, is my memory, or something of that close. And then the residual is what we can take from, because we will have the cost of the signs, we will have the cost of the 4x4s, we'll have the cost of the ferns. And I don't know whether we're approaching that problem or not. I don't think we are, but we ought to just double check to make sure.
the last that I had spoken to the trustee of the trust funds,
Yeah.
there was a significant amount of money that we had.
Okay, that's what I remember, I just wanted to double check to make sure we didn't.
I don't have the exact
Yeah.
dollar amount.
So when you put in, all of a sudden they don't say, hey.
Nope, reject.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. We have a good margin there.
Good.
We just voted to authorize some fern planting materials.
I apologize.
We were worried you'd vote no, so.
Yeah, I know.
We know your
Yeah.
anti-fern stance.
My son's car is broken down in Montana
Oh, no.
with no service, so he's been trying to get it figured out for the last 4 hours. So I may have to step up again. He's calling for a Forest Service station, so I can't call him back. But he's close, so I apologize. Or he does. Well, the ferns is a good idea.
Well, and I think just rather than scheduling a big work day, if we can just move with a little bit of the rest of those wood chips, see where we're at. We may have to, from the resident sticker parking to the porta potty, do a more durable surface to make that actually ADA accessible.
Yeah.
Rather than the wood chips. So I think that would just entail pulling up that plastic material now and raking it all off.
Would we leave the plastic there to put the gravel on?
Yeah, but the only thing that it's just staked down.
Yeah.
You probably, yeah.
So I think just pull the whole thing up, rake everything down, and we may like just put like a geotextile under there just so we
Yeah.
can, since we're going to be putting gravel and compacting it.
Yeah.
So.
And would you do gravel and granite dust, or just, yes?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Because that makes
that's the surface material that's going on the pathway, so we'll have access to some of that, and if there's some left over, that
makes a nice surface.
yeah, so, that should be easier to do. All right. Any other Jackson Falls?
I do have a question. I've been working on the, quote, stewardship plan,
Yeah.
and I've been trying to figure out who owns what up there and what our rights are. And I've dug up a bunch, and I was still trying to download some stuff from the Carroll County deed, but maybe some of you can help speed me up here a little bit. My understanding is, let's see if I can find the map. The town owns the property. It doesn't all make sense, but the town owns the block up where the picnic tables are and so forth. And then as you come, and then of course on the other side of the river, the town owns where the old town hall was in the parking lot. And that's what shows up, on the map, the 3 lots here. And then the town, pretty much where the road goes in to the condos, the high condos up there. If you go across from that road all the way down to the Route 16 bridge, or Route 16B bridge, the town has an easement on it, but does not own it. And I'm trying to find, I was trying to download, when you get on Carroll County deed, sometimes it just takes forever for it to do anything. It's, obviously it's a pretty slow network connection that they have. I was not able today to download it just because the thing was just spinning away. Is this everybody else's understanding? And the town, when Phil Davies was on the Conservation Commission, he had a lawyer go look at this as well. But then it got confusing because there was a map that showed that the easement was down as far as the houses, but not all the way down to the 16B bridge. Anybody have any knowledge? Because this is all pre my time.
I remember Phil Davies one time saying that the Wentworth owned all that and the town just had a right of way.
As an easement, I believe.
As an easement, yeah. It had a right of way.
There's a difference between the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Had an easement as a right of way that just basically crossed the land to access the lower part of the falls.
And the lower bridge.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah,
That's-
I'm
I'm trying to find it. Yeah.
Well, that's what he said.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it as well. if I was asked, I would have said, I believe the Wentworth owns.
But I would have thought all that stuff would be in one of
In
the.
the lot.
I haven't had a chance to go through it. I just, some people here were involved with this way back when I wasn't, so.
So what do you see as for where the snow roller is?
I believe that the town may have an easement on it. It does not own it. And that's just, I'm trying to interpret what I'm looking at right now. I don't know the true answer, Dick, so I want to be careful in pretending I know when I don't.
Well, it's been a discussion since Phil
Yeah,
looked into that. I don't know if you found the covenant for no parking. It's not to be used for.
yeah, I'm still seeing if I want to see what I can get out of the Carroll County deed to see if I can actually read what the easement deeds are. It just was spitting me out all afternoon, so maybe I'll ask tonight and see if anybody remembers. I do have a correspondence that Phil had. The commission did have a lawyer look at this, but then it gets confusing because they start talking about lots 10Q, 10O, and they don't align with the coding on today's tax maps.
So is the attorney's letter referencing tax map or plan?
Actually, it's referencing plans and places, and
Yeah,
that's,
so you have to use the plans, not the tax.
and that's what I'm, yeah, that's what a lot of the plans are on the Carroll County website. It just, yeah, some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's whatever they were able to scan it.
I mean, I'd be happy to take a look at the attorney's letter and.
Yeah,
and-
well, here's the attorney's letter from way back.
and Who's the attorney?
I don't know. Where did I put that? I had it here. No, that's the, here's Phil. This was Phil's letter, and this is the attorney's response. And that was back in 2005, 6. I don't know if you were on the board then, I don't remember, but, and then I did have in the files, and these were the files that Ben set us up to have access to. There's a proposed resolution on the conveyance of the condos conveying easements over. But this is just a proposed resolution that the condo association had. Obviously, it has to be converted into an actual deed for it to have any meaning. And that's what I'm trying to dig out. And then there's this map that, as I say, doesn't quite jive with this map because the attorney talks about everything that's in blue, that the easement goes all the way down to the Route 16B bridge. This only shows it going down to where the houses are.
I see the
And
one.
this is the town of Jackson's tax map.
This is one of the plans that, I have to go back and check. I just realized that I started reading this. But I want to put this in the stewardship plan. I want it to be right so we don't have to go back and.
You are so correct to try to get it right
Yeah.
now. Because if we don't get it right sometime here, it's just gonna haunt us forever.
And hopefully it's crystal clear at some point, because if it isn't, I can put down what I think, but that doesn't mean it's right.
I believe there is a record of actual
I
measurements
think it is 85.
that we could.
Yeah, and I'm gonna check the files here as well, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time if people said, oh yeah, I remember it's X, Y, Z, because this can end up being ours.
I remember it being a can of worms.
Yeah. But the island, I think, came over in the easement as well,
Yes.
but it's not owned by the town.
But it's decent, yeah.
And actually, when we do, and that's one of the things I want to check, because like, working on the invasives, just below the guardrail with the walkway, that's not town land. That's just town easement on that. And I don't know whether the easements give us the right to do anything or not.
Well, you have to see what the easement says.
Yeah,
What's the easement for? And then, you know,
And I would go ahead with any improvement until somebody said, what are you doing there?
Yeah,
And then you say, well, we're trying to, fight a knotweed or a buckthorn or whatever's in there. And, it's pretty much like, we're trying to do the right thing.
And historically,
well, I think the easements came over all at the time when the Wildcat was being put into the Wild and Scenic, because the Tilneys put conservation easements, the Peppers did, and it's kind of interesting because like the Peppers conservation easement actually is held by this commission, not by a land trust. Of course, Upper Saco didn't even exist at that time, but
I think the Tilneys are too, weren't they?
no,
Tilly's,
I
I
think the
think
society,
Yeah, I think they're,
I think they were the society, I'm not sure on that, Dick. I won't. My recollection is theirs was with the society, but you could be right, it's with the town.
Yeah.
Did you add these lines or?
Nope.
Because it seems like there's something very useful under it. It says easement granted to town of Jackson in,
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that the town has an easement on that part. Below the houses, when this attorney reviewed it for Phil Davies back there, said it actually goes all the way down to 16 feet. And he was pointing out that some of the tax maps were wrong. I think you'll pick that up when you're reading that. And he's probably correct. And he's referring to this map right here.
might be worthwhile to, I don't know if that's what currently is the tax map.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's close. Some of the lettering has changed, but that's, not much has changed. Here's the current one right here.
Well, I know that we had to discuss the right-of-way in to the north of what was the dance studio.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is that building that's still there, to give access to the lower pool for, the general public.
Yeah.
Which is important because I know that a lot of local people like to use that pool to go in and take a dip
Yeah.
and not even get involved with, the upper end of it, which can be crowded and.
And it could be that's what's written in the easement. I would guess it would be, but, because I think Mallet owned a lot of that land, and then he donated the easement to that block of land, and I suspect it also didn't really cost him anything, because there's not much he could do with it. But I haven't been able to locate the easement yet, to see what it says.
Well, I know that the Wentworth still has some rights there also, because they have the gazebo in there, and they use it for functions, weddings or whatever, which is fine, but I don't think any of that excludes the town's.
Yeah, and I did see and this was pre-pandemic when everything here was closed, and then, I was doing the prospects at that time, but from my understanding is, and I think I've read the deed once years ago, which is in the town files here, and this is when we were looking at the Jackson Falls with that ad hoc group. People were saying the falls are just for Jackson residents, and that's not true, because when the top property got deeded over, not the easement, but got deeded over, it retains the right for all of the Wentworth folks to use it regardless of whether they lived in Jackson in the condo or whether they were tourists or whatever.
Or if they were guests.
Guests, yeah, so
Hotel.
the concept of shutting it down to just being Jackson residents was a no-go.
Right.
You were just gonna get into a legal mess if you tried to do that.
Does anyone know if it's signed as Wentworth parking only for that entire strip?
It is now.
It is now?
Yeah. And it could be that's legal, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna venture an opinion right now, because I don't know.
Depends on what the easement says.
Right.
Yeah,
But if they have the right to park there, but the town has the right to use it, But what it comes down to is the owner has all the rights, and they just give away some of the rights when they give an
Right.
easement. Doesn't mean the owner can't still use it for the same purpose.
I'm gonna guess that the easement more or less says that the town has the right to use this property, just like a conservation easement, but you are correct.
Might be access.
Some easements say you have the right to allow the town to use it, but it doesn't require you to do it.
And it might just be an access thing, so it may not be a parking thing.
Mm.
You know, because you can cross the parking area to get down to the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like
I wouldn't be surprised, that's what it says, is the town
that.
has, the easement terms probably
Access.
allow access to all of the stuff below the part that the town owns. That, my guess would be that's probably what it's saying. So nobody can solve my mystery right now, so I have to go back and
But I would be interested in seeing this if you don't mind circulating.
Yeah, well, this stuff here is actually on the web page for Jackson Falls,
Okay.
and you'd sent out the access to a lot of that. There's a file there. So all I would be doing is forwarding it to, if you can't find it, let me know and I'll send it to you.
Is that,
That's the condo association's proposed, but that doesn't, that would be internal for them, that's not what,
Well, what they might have done is if they were withdrawing land, because I think that's what Rebecca was about.
yeah.
If they withdraw, I think they'd have to record something at the registry.
And it could be, yeah. And it's interesting because when you look on the tax map as to who owns this, it doesn't, it's a blank. I mean, I looked up and said, okay, who owns this? Well, on the tax map, who's gonna pay the taxes or who, there's nothing.
On which part are they?
That whole stretch that comes
Oh,
down
Yeah.
below, it shows no ownership whatsoever.
Hmm.
Which is not unusual because it's like the Eagle Mountain Golf
It's
Course
like common area.
is not actually owned by Eagle Mountain. It's actually owned by the heirs of Porath Badger, etc. But when you look up relative to who's paying the taxes on it, it's the golf course that's paying it. But it doesn't tell you who the owner is, it just tells you who the taxpayer is.
Mhm.
So you can't use the tax map, the tax records to determine ownership. It's like Camp Gow. I can't figure out Camp Gow. But Camp Gow is the building by itself, but I believe it's actually on Valentine's property.
There is such a thing called building on land of another. So somebody can put a building up, but not on the land.
Yeah, but I'm guessing like with Camp Gow is they probably have some sort of relationship between whoever owns Camp Gow and Valentine. It probably went way back in time.
It could be a lease.
Yeah, but when you look at it, the tax for Camp Gow, there's no land, it's just the building,
Mhm.
which tells you that there's something else at
Yeah.
play.
On a conservation easement, the original landowner still pays the taxes on that, like in a conservation easement held by,
Right.
what, Upper Saco or... But the landowner, the original landowner pays the taxes, whatever the taxes are. Not the holder of the easement.
Right, right. But that's not, as I mentioned with the Eagle Mountain Golf Course, their deed has it that the golf course will pay the taxes, so the tax bill gets sent, but that's different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's their agreement
That is
for that area. I'm thinking about the parking lot below the falls that would actually be Wentworth property with a Jackson easement. So if the tax maps don't show anybody paying taxes on it,
Yeah, they show, because the last house, the most downhill house is actually part of, the
Tim Shelmer's house?
yeah, that is actually part of the Wentworth Condo Association. So when you look at his, he only owns the building, like the condos, and then the rest of that is common land. And then the two houses upstream are on their own lot. That's the best that I can decipher.
But if there's nobody paying taxes on the area that the town has an easement on, we can straighten that
Yeah.
out too.
Now, this, this shows that that land is actually, in the taxes, is Wentworth LLC. And then Shalmer, which is 4120, well, that's 4121, which is the land. And then 4120, which is Shelmer, is the condo, and he's paying the taxes just for the building.
But that again
it's-
supports the idea that that whole strip of land coming down is
It's all Wentworth LLC.
as far as I've ever heard it.
And the town has an easement. And whatever the terms of the easement is, what I'm trying to figure out.
So Dick would be,
And that's
Correct.
common, it's common area, and probably the owner of that house that you said is part of the condo association has limited common because they're taking care of the yard like it's theirs.
Yeah, I just wanted, when we put the record in for the plan here, we're not saying this is town land.
Right.
It's not town land, because I don't believe it is.
Well, no, that's good too, though, because if we have an easement,
Has an easement, yeah.
And I'll write what the terms of the easement are in the plan, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
nice.
But obviously, if we get, you have to be careful if you have an easement, we're starting to do work there. We may have to go to the landowner to get permission before you do any work.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's some good sleuthing, I guess. I think it's very interesting, and we talked about that, and then the next day I had to get on the registered deeds. I was like, oh, we just talked about this. I feel like I got a crash course on how to use this table, and it is complicated.
It is.
Not intuitive.
No.
So, all right. I guess we can move on. Gray's Inn, I imagine there's a lot of blowdowns right now.
yeah, there's a couple on the mystery loop, bigger than you pick up by hand.
Was there any further discussion about a trail or path now from the tennis court parking up?
Years ago, we had talked about it, and for some reason something came up about, I thought they said we had to file some sort of a permit or build another trail, and it just, I feel like it just.
Oh, yeah, so we talked about putting a trailhead at the actual end of the parking over there.
We just, because there's that little crossing, the Snowing crossing that brings you to the other side, and we just sort of lost traction with that. But it would be nice.
Remember when that dam went out?
Yeah.
A lot of paperwork.
That's a big deal.
But they found like trout
Yeah, the trout habitat.
habitat, and that slowed it down.
And that's when I first was coming on the commission. We
But
were-
I think they decided that it was more beneficial to have it out of there
Yeah,
than to leave it.
That was an ice pond.
yeah, ice pond.
That was, when you just crossed the bridge, you would have been upstream. and
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah.
And they would cut ice all winter and put it in
Yeah.
an ice house. And
Yeah. You can still see some of the abutments.
That wasn't a real big pond out then, was it?
no, it's about, wasn't as big, half as big as this one.
There's not a lot of ice then.
You stay at it. I mean,
Yeah.
you get 6 inches of ice and you cut it,
Yeah.
Fills
get
up.
6 more.
That was all used by the hotel inn, I take it.
This river was in.
Well, I would be interested to pursue some more trails on that. It's a nice section of land, to just have that one, the mystery loop. You could definitely have, it could sustain more than what we've put on it, for sure.
How far out does the town boundary go? Because like when you go over toward Nesselnook, there's a sign there that says you're leaving ski touring, which is you're leaving town property.
Well, when you cross the brook, you're into that swampy area, and you're basically following the boundary of those house lots. And then you intersect that sign where it
I'll have to look
says,
at the map, yeah.
yeah. And you can see the cuts that Nesselnook had made.
Because when you go up past the mystery boulder, the boulder,
You get off
You get out pretty quick, don't you? Yeah. That's great land back there. It's really
It
interesting.
is, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So it'd be a fun place to have a trail.
Hmm?
It'd be a fun place to have a trail.
Oh, yeah.
There are trails back
Yeah,
there.
you could
There are
have,
trails.
Larry and I probably walked 3 other options before we cut that one. But we just lost traction, and then there was some, it seemed like some legality stuff, and people had things to do, and it just, time flew.
Just wetland permitting or?
No, it was, just I don't remember, some sort of a permit for, some tape we had to jump through, and just Larry said, that was that for now. We just stopped.
Okay. All right.
It is nice because there's not a lot of places in town that are relatively flat, easy walks in the woods. And there's like there's like a little uphill,
Yeah,
but for the most part, it's relatively flat, easy walk.
and you can get out of the wet pretty quick. There's a bit of stony ridges you can get onto to get you out of that kind of boggy area that's down low and it's wet along the old orchard. Everything to the right-hand side. And there's some small wells, and it's unique. It's all been handled by the local hotel, so you never know what you're gonna find.
More
Hence the
opportunities.
hence the foundation that even Alice Pepper didn't know, or doesn't know the history of.
Well,
That's why it's a mystery.
mystery house. All right. Cool. Community garden, fences look great.
Yeah, Gary Allen and his highway department did a wonderful job. So they did a little cutting and put some heavy duty stakes in there. It turned out Gary said it with the stakes actually bent at the base because there were both, rocks there. He said it was the weight of the snow on the fence because the top of the fence was higher than the stakes.
Yeah, it's sad.
So just the weight of the snow. So he trimmed the fence and he put in heavy duty stakes. So
There you
it
go.
looks really good. Did a great
Thank
job.
you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
I put this community composting idea, it just is, it's way more complicated than just having a small space to dump stuff, or a small space to handle grass clippings. Like, it's gonna involve needing constant, brown material to mix in with the grass, and so I don't know if
Take it out of the porta potties and put it in that sort.
oh, that's not the kind of brown we're looking for. That's nice, yeah.
I did get permission from Frank DeFruscia to put our straw into the woods, like there's an open patch over there. So I'm putting the straw in there. If you want to put grass clippings in there, I don't know if that would be a big deal, as long as it's not weed.
Yeah, I guess it's more of just like having a continual source of that, just so that there's always whenever grass gets dumped, it can get mixed with wood chips or straw or sawdust,
We got a lot
anything,
of
so.
straw over there. It's 7 bales of straw that we're taking off the bed, so there's a lot there. Just saying.
Yeah,
You're speaking long term.
yeah, just long term, so if it's a place that people can dump grass clippings, there needs to be, like, so it doesn't get built up where you get the grass layers
Right.
that get too wet and don't break down fast enough. They need to be mixed in with.
Right.
Well, I guess there's probably a couple of different ways to look at it. If it's simply to try to absorb a product that keeps coming up in town, and we just want to be able to take it. And I mean, even if you did just take the grass and it sat there and it was layers and layers of grass over time, it does break down. It's less than ideal, but you can go take that and start lasagna,
Yeah.
making compost. But if the idea is to create compost that you could say you could use in a garden, obviously that starts to get complicated. But maybe, oftentimes the goal that I feel like I try to go after for people is to just ease the make it easier that people will stop putting food waste and compostable items into their household trash, just to keep that out of the trash, so that we're not, that's not composting and emitting, so there's a way to deal with it, and it does become something. Sure, you're not maybe gonna put it in your organic garden, but you're still generating a bulk material that can be used as fill, and so, there's like 3 different composting ideas there, and there's the garden, there's the organic garden one, there's the one just trying to deal with waste so people don't put it in places that are unsightly. And
Unless you could build something over at the fields.
The only thing you don't know about the grass though is whether people are using pesticides, etc.
That's what I think, like my compost is strictly just like avoid the waste stream. Like mine is simply just a place to put things,
right.
just so I'm not putting it in the
And
garbage.
it disappears.
And it disappears over time. And I'm not using it, I don't use it on my gardens, I don't use it from my vegetables. It's just, for me, it's just a place to make sure it doesn't go in the trash.
Yeah.
That's
And
where the
so-
animals get in. They take it and it goes away.
I put it in my compost minus meat, and every spring, I've already done it, I just take it and I put it in the bottom of my raised beds,
Yeah.
cover it back up,
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
and it
Yeah.
decomposes. I don't have to go through all of this compost routine, because
Right.
it's a pain in the ass.
But most people aren't gonna do either of those 2 things.
Yeah.
So we're just saying, like,
But it breaks down.
yeah,
You just gotta bury it deep enough so you don't get all these squash coming out and, whatever else is there.
Right.
But it actually works very effectively.
I think I'm looking at a volume issue where like household composting is very easy. Like that's a simple thing, but once you get large volumes or regular volumes, and I guess I don't want to move the problem somewhere else.
So maybe you need a composting system on site.
Well, that's where it becomes, if,
yeah.
well, I think I'm just gonna work on this until I have a better plan.
Well, if you get into household waste, you're gonna get critters, so you gotta have some kind of containment, because otherwise it's gonna be strewn all over the place.
I think this is a solution to a problem of grass clippings.
Where are all the grass clippings coming from? What's it from?
I don't really want to get into that right
Okay, sorry. I just didn't know. I didn't know.
We're gently going around the edges.
I don't think even raccoons like
Right.
grass clippings.
Which is it's an issue that comes up when the town does mowing on common fields of like, what happens to that grass? Where does it go?
Yeah.
And
So not just stay there.
I don't know if they
Mulched
have a
in, like
bagger.
mulching. Do they have a mulching more? That mulches the.
I have found grass in weird places,
Yeah, I have too.
and
You
Being
don't have to-
collected and thrown.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. You see it with wood ash too. People will dump wood ash
Oh, I
right,
see that.
right
I've
along
seen
the
it.
edge of the river.
I've seen that one.
Wood ash on the edge of the river?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I
a
guess they
lot.
don't want it to burn.
Well, no, it's
want it to
just
disappear.
easy to
so-
make it disappear.
Wow.
Is that bad? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying
Spraying back in the woods.
that people do all sorts of things, and it becomes a habit. Maybe you've been doing it for 30 years, and it's just what you do. So if you poke around enough, you can find those places along the edges of the river. Anywhere there's been a house, you'll find a,
Midden, yeah.
yeah. So,
Well, I guess there's no magic bullet, and it's probably going to involve needing to work with the transfer station at some level. So, that's on my back burner.
okay.
All right. Any other garden?
Oh, just one thing. I collect $50 from each garden. Is it possible that you can have me just spend the money on whatever we need to for the garden without it having to go through all of us and you and, I don't know. Just
Doesn't get you
thinking.
interest.
Yeah. But the thing is,
You're at risk of that.
Yeah.
I would not.
I have receipts.
No,
Well,
no.
that means you'd have to have a party for all of us at least once a year.
Yeah. Yeah. 5%.
I think you almost have to turn it in and then send it back.
Well, the thing, all I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's one way or the other, I'm just saying that every time I spend something, I've got to go through Ben. And everything's with the town, so it's not like the town, you basically take Ben out of the equation. Because I'd still have to go to the town and say, here's my receipt.
Well, what?
And then it comes
Because
out of the,
They hold the money.
yeah.
Yeah, they hold the money. But otherwise, anytime I want to spend something, we get a receipt, it's got to go through Ben. And then
Have you set up a little governance with,
the town has all the money.
no, but relative to the plots out here, have you set up a little governance scheme with the people who are involved? Because if you set that up,
I'm trying to figure that out. with
where the
Ben.
money would go into that governance and back out would remove Ben.
I think that, yeah.
I think that's, and from when we were reading about setting up
Mhm.
community gardens, et cetera, that was a model that was out there. So my recommendation would be
Yeah, I got yours,
to-
it's good, yeah.
to look at that as your model.
Yeah.
But then that's gonna mean you probably gotta set up well, that governance body then can decide whether it's out of your checkbook or you need to set up a separate checkbook that just puts it in and takes it back out with you as the treasurer, or
Well,
however.
yeah,
I just think it's dangerous where that's town, it's a town project,
right, and the money's held by the town.
and the money is held by the town, but if it goes to you and somebody gets upset, as a
But
lawyer, you
it would be
probably,
the same way, and I'm not saying one way or the other,
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out a way to simplify it, is so that we don't have to have this, type of thing. But if you get a receipt and you go to the town, and the town says, okay, because it's coming from Pam as the garden coordinator, we'll pay for it. Well, that's what I was thinking. So, but you're thinking that there needs to be more than that.
it's optics, if somebody's upset.
Yeah, I think you would want it so that way if someone says, oh, I didn't agree to that, spending that money that way, or I didn't know you were gonna spend the money that way, or whatever.
Well,
It's actually
this,
so much
this
more
board
than
can
that.
vote to allow you to spend up to a certain level. We could say, anything over $200, you have to come to the board, but up to, or whatever. They give you some wiggle room to, make those, if you have to go to Lucy Hardware to pick up
Yeah.
$20 worth of stuff, you can pretty much go ahead, do it, and then get, you would get reimbursed again through the
Right.
town office.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be hidden or in any way, devious. It's just, I think we can allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Everything following up on Dick's idea is collect the money, put it into the Conservation Commission. We vote that you can spend up to that, whatever is collected, without further approval from this board.
Mhm.
And then you just have to go to the town to get it without going through here.
Right.
That might be the cleanest.
That's why I was trying to take you guys out of the equation, so you don't have to be involved with
Yeah.
it.
I just think it's dangerous if it goes into your checkbook and back out of your checkbook.
Into my personal checkbook?
Yeah.
Oh, no, town's holding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's all I was trying to do.
I'm happy to make a motion that Pam can spend out of whatever is collected, which is, I don't know how many,
$350.
$350, without further approval from the commission for the sole purpose of the community garden.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
Do we want to put an exact number? Because will that number ever change? Like, does it make sense for dues
What is
collected,
yeah.
dues collected that year?
Yeah.
Does that make more sense? So that way,
Yeah,
if some years you collect more, like maybe you double it or whatever.
Or you may need more
Yeah.
than what's in the dues, yeah.
so that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is Pam can spend,
Up to what is collected from the dues
The garden coordinator.
as the garden coordinator.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah,
garden,
okay, we should say
right,
garden
yeah.
coordinator. Yeah.
garden coordinator can spend up to the amount collected without further approval from the Conservation Commission
For the sole purpose,
for maintenance or
for the community garden.
Yes.
I wouldn't put,
maintenance, okay.
yeah,
Okay,
because it could be something new as opposed to just maintenance.
okay.
For the sole purpose of community garden. Yeah.
I'll second that again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's good because you don't always have to wait a month too. That's the other part, you know, the garden's going in the summer, you don't wait till September to get approval to buy, you know, a replacement piece or, yeah.
I thought you were gonna run through your checkbook. I know.
No,
Ooh,
no,
yeah,
no.
okay.
We'll be
It's all in the
watching
town.
it.
Yeah.
That would be bad for you.
Yeah, I would never do that.
Yeah, good.
A Wildcat River, I still have not heard back from the voluntary monitoring program coordinator for the state, so I may need to follow up with someone else about that.
Is that through DES?
Yes.
Let me, people at Tim Mountain talk to DES like on a daily basis. Who's the person? Or I can just ask. If you want it to the volunteer.
It's whoever on their website. Actually, I'm not gonna have record of that on my phone.
Because I can,
I'll send that to you.
send it to me, yeah, because I can check, our research manager talks to the people at DS, especially about water quality and brook trout stuff, like, daily.
I think you're looking for, what is it called, the VRAP movement?
Oh, yeah, you're right. They used to have all those protocols online that you could just download. Is that what you're getting after?
Yeah, they have all that, but then they have a state coordinator to help set up your own
Gotcha.
program. And so,
And it could be some of those, they're having trouble hiring people at the state, so they have a number of vacancies, which they just can't find people to take the positions right now because of the pay scales.
okay. I don't think there's any conservation easement issues. Wetlands permits, I think we should just,
Same one? That's the one off of Malin, Damascus?
it's the adjacent lots to that.
It's not the one that I looked at?
No, it's not the one we looked at last month, it's the adjacent lot. That's lot 40. And since I can't get access to that right now, we may just have to have a wetlands subcommittee meeting to review that.
Is that the one down Carbon Notch?
No, it's on Maloon.
Well, okay, now it's on Malone. okay.
Or on,
'Cause
not
wasn't
Oh, it's on Francis?
Francis, yeah.
But it, yeah. So the one that I told you that I looked at was not this one, it's the other one?
Well, when I was talking to Karen, she pulled something else out, and it is the adjacent lot, which is what we reviewed last month, or looked through last month. And this is, I'm assuming it's the adjacent, because that was lots 40 and 40A, and this is 39. So,
It's an interesting spot.
I'll come in tomorrow and pick that up.
Just let me know if you want to go up there. You know I'm working
Yeah.
in that, well, you know I'm working.
Who else is on the wetland?
Just kind of just disbanded a little bit,
Okay,
but we could go for a third.
okay.
Volunteers.
Tom likes to do this kind of thing.
St. Thomas and Boswell. Hold on. That's like, we need a fourth.
Okay, well, I'll come and grab that and we can review
Yeah.
that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I did believe that is one that the Conservation Commission needed to review. And if we see anything that we need to flag,
It's a good one to just walk and understand, just looking at all the markings. There's a lot of flagging, a lot of,
okay,
it's a small space with a lot of stuff going on.
okay. Well, I'll touch base with you
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah,
about
that'd be good.
New business, we're moving forward with the Riverwalk resurfacing. We just submitted our permits. It ended up being a more significant permit because of rebuild quality and the way that the lots are broken up. So the portion that's on the town property is under the square footage, so that went out for a permit by notification. But the portion that is on the Snowflake property, because it's so long, required the
Even though it's a rehab?
It's, yes.
I won't ask you to describe the
Yeah.
district.
Yeah.
But that's going on, and I think we're still on track for getting work started early June, so. The only other thing that came up with that is the bridge's condition is, like, we're going to have to probably apply for another permit by notification to just lift the upriver side of that up so that we can build the landings to that, and then in the next 5 years, that bridge will need to be replaced. Because it is 4 telephone poles with decking across it. And because of the way that that brook is shaped, there's a tree just downriver, and that tree has created a scour pool essentially under
Yeah.
the footing of the bridge, and so that's why it has sunk that way. So I think when we walked it last week with the contractor, I think our plan was we're just going to lift it up and put in 2 concrete pads under it so that we can build the bridge landings at the finished elevations that they'll need to be at, and then just put a steel I-beam bridge across that to fully span that riverbank and get us out of that channel.
Mhm.
So,
That's really good. Expensive.
well, yes, expensive, and it was funny looking through that upper Saco River, or the stream crossings, that program that was put on last month, and the number of bridges in Jackson that are red listed, like 75% of them, like culverts are undersized, and so,
One only has to drive up.
yeah, it was a very good example of seeing that in action today, so,
Yeah, even with new construction.
yeah, especially that one.
That poor guy.
Just be glad that you're not going through with the Forest Service to get that bridge permitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking, because it's such a simple bridge, it might be a good opportunity to bring in like metal fabrication students or someone, because it's a simple welding job. It just needs 4 I-beams and decking, so.
What you might consider doing is not putting your cement pads right where the bridge lands now, but extending it out a little bit, because that gives you more, it gives the stream more ability to take water as you get higher and higher events, which we're gonna get.
Yes, I think the final goal is that the new bridge landings will be much further out, but
Yeah,
just in the interim, because we have to deal with the length of the bridge we have. so,
Right, yeah.
to minimize the amount of disturbance when we place the final bridge. So, that's,
The only thing I didn't, and maybe we're not, there's one other thing with the spongy moth egg mass identification and removal. But I didn't see the trail. Are we supposed to discuss the trail list, or is that?
The trail list is up on the Jackson website.
Okay, yeah.
I circulated what.
Yeah, I went for that as well.
I was gonna say about the resurfacing of the bridge. White Mountain Community College has like beginning welding and advanced welding classes, and I have no idea if they do regional projects, but they have college students that do projects and learn how to weld. So it might be something to, phone calls not too far to Berlin. Just a thought.
And there are people down here that have been in that program, I think, the welding.
yeah, so I think that's, I see projects like that, and I just see, Eagle Scout projects, and, so.
Kennett High School has a welding program, but I don't know that they would be dealing with that kind of welding.
Yeah, well, I
Because they're making a sit ski for the adaptive program and that sort of stuff, but And they've done those, you know, they've done the mini houses and so on, but my guess is to weld on a big I-beam might be a little different than welding a bicycle or a sit ski. I don't know.
Yeah, so just something to bring down
Yeah.
the cost, and I think at some point I'm gonna need to have a conversation with Ski Touring about that bridge and splitting costs on it.
Don't talk to me about bridges right now with ski touring.
I know,
Yeah.
I realize.
We're looking for $1 million just to cover
Yeah.
the stuff with the National Forest.
Yeah, so, but that is something that's on the horizon, that'll have to be done. Poking our head under the bridge and seeing like, oh, it's,
Look at
In all reality, the
Hilarious.
ski touring may have, I mean, what the Ski Touring Foundation used in the past was, you know, they got the used co-op telephone poles.
you know,
Now, the co-op won't give them out because of the liability, because they're already, you know, structurally they aren't okayed anymore. But, because you're not on the National Forest, so ski touring may have some additional poles. I know that they have some in storage. Instead of just having 4, put down 6. Because you're running a groomer over there once every X number, and to be quite honest,
6 times a year.
those telephone pole bridges have lasted for 50 years.
Right?
It's just these new engineering criteria have
It's-
pushed the cost
Yeah.
into the unreasonable lane. Where you're trying to fix something and be a heck of a lot better than, but the cost has gotten so excessive
Yeah.
right now. But you're not bound by some of the issues the Ski Touring Foundation has, which is they now have to be the Forest Service specs, which is road specs, which is nuts.
It's like the steel bridges that are on the
Yeah.
ice now, right? That's
Yeah.
what's acceptable.
it's like 100,
Yeah.
they have a slide in it.
If you were looking to get some extra poles from the Ski Touring Foundation, you might talk with Ellen, if you're satisfied with that, because that would probably save, and then you just back to planking without the,
Yeah, well, oh, all right, well, I'll reach out to her. I think if, the goal is to make it a longer bridge, so if that's a possibility.
I know that there are some poles that are over on the storage area for the ski touring, because you know, the ski touring owns some land off of Hemlock.
You know, or
Yeah. There are some poles down there.
Okay. All right. The only other thing that I had on here was the spongy moth that Mike had brought up before, and I saw that there was a thing in the paper about it just the other day, so.
Yeah, it would probably be a good time, or actually probably maybe even a little late, but it'd probably be a good time if you wanted to put out something through e-news just about like, it could even be as simple as like just a quick sentence or two and a couple of links. Like New York DEC has some good information on spongy moth.
Yeah.
Mass Audubon has some good.
Yeah.
So when this went out, this was kind of a test to see about how we can message things. So when this went out and when the agenda went out in e-news, this went out as a hyperlink that links to the UNH's resource guide.
Awesome.
Excellent. Yeah.
So
I'll check that
well
out.
done.
I think that's probably something I could do more of just
Yeah, that's
using
great.
e-news to do that. I didn't really flag that specifically because I didn't know if it would work and how it went through their program, so.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I just kind of been thinking like, hey, it's time to start paying attention. If you haven't been scraping trees, you should be scraping
Yeah.
trees. And here's a link
Yeah.
to.
Because I'd like to know what I'm supposed to be looking for. I mean, I saw it at the base of my, my tree,
Yeah,
my
Jag-
plum tree, but it's like, where'd they go? I don't know where they went.
Right. Yeah, but it's the egg sacs is what you gotta, once
I don't
they're
know what they
adults,
look like though.
the egg sacs, they
Yeah.
look like little white, like someone's
kind
spit on a
of
tree,
brown,
kinda.
hairy, silky
Are they
nestings.
low or are they up high?
They're very low, like
They're
just kind of.
low. If they're low, it's usually they're low because they try and the egg sacs, if they're laid below the snowpack,
Yeah,
then they have a higher rate of surviving the winters.
and so you're supposed to scrape them with something?
Yeah, you scrape them off and you can either burn them or you can put them in soapy water.
So do they look like eggs? Do they look like?
No, it looks like They're kind of powdery when you start scraping them, and they look like,
Go online. and look
yeah,
at
it's
it.
like a
I'm gonna look it up right now.
white fibrous kind of thing. There's lots of little dots.
Okay.
You scrape them off.
Once you've
and then
seen one, it's pretty simple to.
Yeah, and then you wanna either burn them or you wanna drown them in soapy water. Yeah, so I don't know if it's worth just a sentence or two and sending out a link.
Oh, and the other thing too, with the link thing, is that I had an email from somebody based upon our last meeting, that said that they watched it and they were interested in the dark sky type of thing, because I know you were talking about maybe having a program at the Whitney, and one of the things that this person was commenting on is it might be nice to have like a town, wide, event where maybe between 10 and 11, everybody turns their lights off. I mean, just as like a little experiment.
It's interesting, they did just have a thing on NPR about towns switching over to LED lights and about how it is more energy efficient, but because they're brighter and whiter, it's more disruptive for night skies and also for like human circadian sleeping rhythms and for animals moving around. So it's kind of an interesting thing.
Well,
Maybe you wonder what kind of lights we have.
But that's
I have no
why.
Well, the
idea.
problem is, people don't have it as directional lighting.
Yeah, you need
It's
the
supposed
dark
to have the cover
sky.
on it,
Yeah, with the cover.
which is what the lighting ordinance says.
Yeah.
So it might be kind of cool to think if we could do maybe propose a program for the Whitney or something like you were saying.
Yeah, I can. I mean,
Dark
we talked to friends of the Whitney. I should be writing something down. And send it to. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Tin Mountain, but the Whitney as well just has programs like that. And I think if we could find the right person.
We have a town ordinance that basically says you're supposed to do this, I think.
But it'd be nice if you could kind of dovetail it, so it'd be something that, that people might be interested in learning more about, and then saying, oh, and by the way, this is what the town has, which is a dark sky lighting
And
ordinance.
people buy all these little solar lights now, and they're all upward.
Oh yeah.
And they're on all
yeah.
night, because, they're
Right.
solar, so
Yeah,
they don't
well, I
go
think that's
out.
the thing with LEDs, people leave their lights on outside a lot more because they feel like it costs pennies instead of dollars.
Right.
I have people do it all the time.
BB guns.
Blackout
Tough
shades.
guy.
It comes down to blackout shades, at some point.
BB guns.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who offered that, and she said it was a good shot.
Nice.
I have one quick thing as well.
We get the grammar school kids, it's called the light biathlon.
Yeah, biathlon. They
Your
can
lights
run,
on.
they can run, bike, or ski with the rifle.
I'll
I just have
sponsor
to
it.
wear camouflage.
I was in the ski touring youth meeting the other day, and they had asked for a letter. So they're looking to drive the groomer on Route 16 to get from ski touring to the Triangle Fields, which is like the little field next to the snowflake. They call it the Triangle Fields. Because right now, because they groom that for the PE,
Yeah.
the kids at PE, and right now in order to do that, they have to get 2 or 3 people to load the groomer up on the trailer and then back it out and then drive the vehicle in the trailer 200 feet and then pull it back out and then do it again. And so anyway, to do that, they have to get an exemption with the state DOT. And so they had asked if the school would write a letter of support saying that this is an important thing and it's great for the kids and everything like that. And I said I would also bring it to the attention of the Conservation Commission, and we can decide if we think we also want to write a letter of support saying that we find it environmentally and conservation okay for them to drive the groomer. When I talked to Ellen about it, she told me the number, and I can't remember, but they've measured how far it is. And I was trying to think of any environmental degradation that could happen from driving the piston bully down the road, and I can't think of anything that would be different from a large vehicle, any kind of big, heavy truck that was moving down. So anyway, it's just something I'd throw out there, and I don't think they need it tomorrow, but just something we can think about, and if we feel like it's a good idea, maybe we could also write a letter of support and include that to DOT. It really does save,
It's expensive.
To load and unload.
to load it, yeah, load and
Sure.
unload it, yeah.
And it's the usage of fuel.
And they're offering that program to the town for free.
And it makes the PE program possible. So because they groom the triangle fields, the kids can do they do between 4 and 6 weeks of Nordic for PE, And if they didn't groom the triangle fields, then you wouldn't have time. Like, they couldn't do it in the amount of time for PE. So it's a free service they offer to the town. Every kid does it. I think
This
it's,
is the snowflake field, right next
yeah,
to
it's
flooded
the,
right now.
what is it?
It's the brown
The,
field.
the way that the law is written right now is you can drive a groomer perpendicular across the road, but you can't ride it parallel to the road.
without.
And I think one of the groomers already has rubber treads on it, and they're looking at putting rubber treads on the other one because they've discovered that it doesn't make that much difference in traction. But they do need, because of the way that that's a state road, and they're petitioning the state to be able to do it. I mean, I'm biased, so I'll remove myself, but
I'm also biased from it.
yeah.
But
Well,
if it's directly
but I'm
against
a
my
board
kids.
member of the Ski Tour
Oh, right, right.
Foundation, so I will not, but
But so if you're not, so the triangle fields, if you're staring at the snowflake, it's the field in between that and the Wentworth. So it's the one on the right.
Yeah.
Triangle fields. It's, I think, pretty much where most of PE happens at the school nowadays.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to make a motion, take a vote on it, or just ruminate on it.
You'll create that letter if we vote on
I
it?
asked Ski Touring to draft a letter, and they would send it to us, and we would review it and then sign it. Because I felt like I didn't want to have one of us have to like write the letter. I just want to see, have them do it. Because that was their plan. They're going to send a letter to the PTO and a letter to us, and we can review it and then sign it and send it in.
I think some other ski areas are petitioning as well to get a little bit more flexibility in being able to get groomers to be able to traverse short distances.
Makes sense. So I'm gonna make a motion for the Conservation Commission to write a letter of support for ski touring so that the groomer can use Route 16.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Tenure.
I'm
using
abstaining.
yourself? All right. All those in favor? Aye. And an abstention? All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Can I just, one
Yes.
last thing, I'll be quick. The planning board is doing a chip, or working on a chip this year, a capital improvement plan. And one of the aspects is solar, how much we would want the town to get involved with solar installations and harvest, not on private, on town land. So we've talked about Maloon Road, we've talked about the Whitney roof. Any other idea, one idea would be to have ski touring by an electric shuttle bus to run people up Carter Notch. This is 10 years out. We're thinking 8 to 10 years, so don't get excited. As a way to, alleviate the parking problems that we have. Anyway, if anybody has any ideas other than the Whitney and Maloon Road for solar installations by the town, you bring them to me, and this is down the road. Just think.
I don't think it's down the road, Dick, because the Inflation Reduction Act has changed the equation big time. The Biden Inflation Reduction Act means that non-government organizations and municipalities now can go for solar. And before, when they went for solar, like when the town went for solar here, it couldn't take advantage of the 30% tax write-off because it doesn't have any taxes. So it had to go through a third party. So like your solar here isn't actually owned by the town. To get the 30%, Revision went and got a third party who could take the tax write-off. So the town buys its power from that solar but doesn't own the system. Long run, it's much more economical to own your own solar system. The Inflation Reduction Act, and the final rules aren't out yet on it, but it will be a 30% tax, it'll be a 30% rebate to NGOs and municipalities. Of course, the Republicans are trying to kill everything that came out of that was good, but that's the long and the short of it. But now is the time to seriously look at it. I agree with you. I think the one question on Maloon, Dick, is because I look at that and it's an ideal place. It's a brownfield site. It's south-facing. The big question will be whether the power line there could actually take the power.
That is my next step, is to contact
The co-op,
McNeil, well, the fellow up there,
yeah.
McNeil, who does solar, and see what the infrastructure impact would be for both of those locations. I think that Whitney's all right. I think they have a 400 amp service there. So that should be...
No, it's more on the actual power line itself, whether it can handle that amount of power.
Right, well, the Whitney has 3-phase going up the Black Mountain, so
Yeah.
Yes.
there's pretty good infrastructure in place, 400 amp service on the building. I don't know what their transformer is, but that's my question. But what to do up at Maloon Road, how much could we put in there?
And that would be a question to the co-op, whether they're power.
Yes, it would be,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm going to do
yeah.
is talk to McNeil at the co-op to get ahead of this, because that's one of the things we had
Yeah.
a problem with the highway department, was all of a sudden we had to put in and spend the money on larger transformers, which led me to believe that the co-op was not fully behind solar. I think they have to be to some extent because of the carbon credits and carbon emissions that they're trying to balance. But anyway, I think that it's going to be doable. I do know what to look for because we had that problem with the highway department installation. So
Actually,
again,
even homeowners will have that problem, because I know when we put our system in, our transformer was capable to take our solar system, but if the next door neighbor now decides to, he actually has to pay to upgrade the transformer. Yeah. And that's not the co-op against it, it's just,
The cost.
yeah,
right, they want to get paid for that infrastructure. If you're adding, well, and they're allowing you back onto the grid.
Yeah.
If you're going to be self-contained with batteries, no problem.
Yeah.
But if you're going back onto the grid, they have to think about, how much power are you putting back on there? It's like putting a little generator plant in. So anyway, but if anybody thinks about any other locations that might be applicable, let me know.
because with a school, with a Whitney Center, that would have to be through the school board though, not through the town, correct?
Ken, I'm really more interested in your ideas of where.
Yeah,
I have talked to the SAU. I have gotten all the billing from
okay,
both the
so they're open
Whitney,
to that, yeah.
from the Whitney and the school. So we're trying to balance that out. Come up with an idea of, other than those two places, where we might do an installation. I'd love to hear about it.
The other obvious, but still left out there, is the fire building, because they haven't figured out what to do with it.
Well, if they put it in a roof, that,
Yeah,
but that's, well, anyway, that's part of the chip, is, the school is part of the chip, fire station, all the things that are not a new plow truck or a new, a police cruiser. This is forward thinking and, it's really to balance out our taxes so that we don't in 1 year want a new $5 million fire department, whatever addition on the school, a bridge, or I don't know. Anyway, we're trying to get ahead of it and balance that out so that you don't have the spikes in your taxes. Taxes are gonna go up, but let's keep it, on an even keel.
All right. Well,
Thank you for doing that.
I think we'll
know if you think of anything.
But I like the idea of ski touring getting an electric shuttle bus.
We have lots of people that have lots of ideas. We need money attached
To
to
spend your money?
it. Money we don't have.
Right.
All right, well, we had a motion to adjourn on the table.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I
So big help.